I'm Jeff Sagpil. This is Mike.
Mike, nice to meet you.
I've been in that situation before where there's something really cool out there, and I've seen it, and I'm an engineer, and oh, this looks really great, and I go to the CFO and say, yeah, it's really cool. CFO looks at me like, you're in my office. Can you leave? Because, you know, there's no reason. You guys had to have a business reason why you decided to go with a non-traditional workflow. What at Garza led you to go this non-traditional route?
I'll go with the first thing. You always go with budget. And I mean, anytime you're doing something, you're strapped by a budget, and you have to look at what assets, what resources you have to complete the project that you're given. And in this particular case, it's 10 episodes of an international docuseries, and I had some significant challenges that were, you know, I always kind of reverse engineer everything, go, well, how am I going to finish first? And if I finish, I could go back to the start and make sure that I'm hitting each milestone along the way and making it work. And there were going to be some significant barriers in post that before we even started production, I knew I was going to bump up against. And one of those was just a physical workspace. We have a TV studio in Koreatown. We have a live studio area that's being used. We also share it with another network. And we have a lot of office space, but we don't have a lot of editing space. So I'm like, where am I ever going to build out like an Avid system that's going to work here? This just isn't going to work. It's not, you know, it's not feasible. And I started looking at other barriers I had to putting together a physical spot for post-production against my budget. And I just kept running up into the same things. This doesn't cost me too much money. So I went to NAB, and I kept thinking, you know what? Everything's going to be in the cloud. Sooner or later, this stuff has got to work in the cloud, and I don't want to be physically trapped. I have, you know, executive producers who are always on the move. They're never going to be in the same spot, and they need to see stuff. I've got, you know, producers who are in different parts of the country, and we have a co-production in Taiwan who we're also working with on projects. So I need to be working internationally, you know, as well as locally. And so I started going to NAB and looking at all these different systems for it, and I ran into Curator. Now, you know how it is at NAB. The sales guys are right there, and they're showing you everything, the latest and greatest, how it is. Yeah, you guys do that. You know you do. Because you need to sell us stuff. Now, one of my little reverse engineer tricks is I always try to get them off the demo and onto what I need them to do. The process. And IPV, they're the first guys whose eyes did not bug out like Marty Feldman when I started asking questions, you know. They did not freak out, and they went through all the steps, and we started talking. You know, instead of having a sales, I had a conversation about what our workflow was going to be and how we could achieve it. And so, you know, they were quick to answer questions, and whoever didn't know something, the first thing to do is go get another engineer. And that guy would come out. And I mean, this thing went on for a couple of days, and I was like, this is going to be a great solution. I really think it's going to work. And when I saw that Key Code was involved in it, and these guys were working together, I said, all right, that's icing on the cake. I already got a trusted affiliate here with boots on the ground, and we got another, you know, great software with tons of potential. I think this could work. And so that's how I actually came about, you know, saying, let's get into this workflow.
That makes sense. It's better than just walking into the office and saying, I like it, I want it.
Yeah, well, the tricky part was selling it to the producers then. Yeah. You know, selling it to the executive producers, going, hey, if you want this to work on your budget, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do something really unconventional. And, you know, once I was able to kind of paint that picture to them and show them the little steps of what it was going to do and how much it was going to cost, then their eyes were the ones that lit up and go, we could do this for the budget. I was like, yeah, it's going to be a lot better. I don't have to have the office. We got guys working remotely. And, you know, one of the other things I always, you know, there's so much money I think that gets wasted in post-production all the time, because post-production is kind of this task-based thing. And you could be paying someone the same thing just to be logging and sitting there and doing these tasks while they're taking up a computer and taking up your office space, and it's costing you 10 times more to be doing a task that costs $10 an hour. All I need is someone to put this information, put this metadata into a computer. They're sitting here, they're using up office space, we're paying all these things. I can have some kid in college doing it from anywhere if he gets it in. We could scale up and scale down with IPV. That was great. We could get the metadata in. So now those tasks I could kind of push aside and save a lot of money on those tasks. And those other tasks, you know, with the logging and the grouping and things like that, that now I don't have to have done in the office. I can just have someone doing it. We're connecting through the cloud. All that stuff comes back and the editors can start working. Now the editors are just doing the job they want to do, which is be creative and find stuff easy and find stuff quick. without bitching at me. Right?
Well,
oh my God, dude, what's going on?
Well, producers will find possibly
yeah.
something to go on.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick look at the results of that workflow. There's a video clip we've got.
Okay, go show the video. One thing, this is
Not
the first, no, this isn't finished. It's the first rough cut. So I just started on Saturday. And so this is a rough cut, so we had something to show tonight. Just so you kind of see the footage. So all the text, all that stuff, no mix, no color, no nothing, just the footage. And the graphic placeholders for we're going to have a graphic artist go in and, put it in. So
it's time for a rough cut viewing. We will not be handling notes tonight. Okay?
Yeah, no notes. No notes. Just a rough cut. Just a rough cut, so these guys can have something to show. Okay.
Go ahead, roll it, Crystal.
Inherently, we want people everywhere to believe in themselves and see their true inner beauty. We really need to take the narrative and rewrite it. We will define what beautiful is. People want to have beauty, have beautiful food, have beautiful conversations, and have beautiful experiences.
I feel excited. Today, being beautiful comes to Asia.
You're literally in his complete control. How does it make you feel?
I'm so excited because he's the top makeup artist in Shiseido.
When you're wearing this, there's a respect for the process, how delicate and detailed she is with every fold.
Actually, in Korean music, we don't just listen music. We have to watch the video together. If you just listen music, you cannot image anything. You have to watch MV, music video together.
I see, so it's the whole experience.
Being no, Korean 나는 no, baby baby 나는 more 좀 아는 no. Being no, Korean 나는 no, baby baby 나는 more 좀 아는 you know what I'm saying? 오빤 강남 style.
When you grab life's opportunities, you are effectively directing your own future. And who doesn't want to be the architect of their own life? Who doesn't want to say, yes, I can make decisions that are going to empower me and bring me places that I want to go?
In the Mediterranean world, like having the boss be a female is
unusual.
It is unusual. Well, I think with people like us, we're thinking about what's next.
If you're going to be innovative, if you're going to be a brand that is popular, it's not good enough just to rely on what we've seen before. We see Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, but you're like couture for the priesthood.
People are feeling empowered, and beauty is within cultures, beauty without borders. We're so much more free today to kind of take our message and bring it to the world, and I encourage all of you to do that. That's what the show Being Beautiful is about.
Cool. I'm very curious about how you utilize this recent deployment. I mean, we're all over the world here, right?
Yeah. We shot
this
in
content
10 countries. Yeah, 10 countries.
And this content, the original raw, is uploaded and gone everywhere.
We have 300 hours on the cloud right now.
Oh!
Yeah.
So this is a perfect reel to show that, I mean, you're all over the place. People are accessing and editing it. Can you go through that process and how it worked with IPV and how people were able to
Yeah, we're working through it right now. We're working through all of the optimization, I would say, for workflow, because it is a different workflow than what some of what IPV's clients have used before. And that's what I really appreciate about these guys, is that they have, they're very adaptable, when it comes to being able to do that. So we're working through being able to do that. Right now, we had 300 hours up there. I'm still getting it logged in syncs, but that's all getting done through the cloud. So I got guys in Colorado now. There's a team out there who are going to take care of all that stuff. In Florida, we'll probably have a team of people who will just be doing the metadata ingest to get it up to the editors. Then I got 2 editors that will be coming on probably in the next 2-3 weeks, one in Atlanta and one in Texas. So there are guys I worked with before. They're all LA guys that I love. They all just moved out because they got sick of a lot of things here. Went for a better quality of life or something. But they had moved on, and I still love working with them. And this is one way that I could keep working with my team, a lot of people on the team, and continue working. They're just accessing it through the cloud, so it's great.
You're definitely getting some good results.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We're on our way. We're moving down the right path.
So also with results, there's impact. What impact has there been to the creative process by this different workflow?
Impact how? Budget, creative,
whatever.
And maybe I can also jump in a little bit. When I met Mike after NAB, went down, they're housed within a broadcaster that does Korean programming, and they had a room. And if you get onto Instagram, Bianca de la Garza has 62,000 followers, and she was a broadcast newscaster in Boston. And she decided to make a transformation in her life and started creating beauty products and selling a lifestyle. And you guys just started taking cameras with you and shooting it. And then all of a sudden they had 300 hours and said, we have some cool footage. We want to start doing some programming. We're not Post. What are our alternatives? And Mike, coming from Post, knew that the alternative is, get a building, rent a bunch of avids, start cutting a show, bringing all these people in. And that level of a business model was not aligned with how Garza Digital was set up. They sell skincare products and lifestyle. And they instead...
Well, she's production.
She has extensive production background and broadcast background. I mean, Google Bianca de la Garza and you'll see all these...
She's running like 3
IPVs
companies right now.
Yeah, very impressive personality. I have like 37 followers on Instagram, so that just gives the perspective. But so we started talking, and there were some key issues about what to do. The 300 hours, they're all in ProRes, they're on a G-Rate. I'm like, ooh. So the first thought was, well, we can...
Well, that's the proxies.
Right. Well,
that we decided to generate because they had at least a LUT on them.
Exactly. It was...
19 terabytes of LUT, 38 terabytes of B-RAW footage from the G2, the drone, the MXF footage. It's all mixed.
So all this footage, and we were like, what do we do? And at first it was like, okay, great, let's put it up on Curator on AWS with an instance and start transcoding. And we started doing the math saying, ooh, that's going to get expensive real fast. Hey, we have an IPV Curator at Keycode. We will put it onto our storage and do go on Nexus or Quantum, I don't even remember.
It went on Nexus, we had space there.
Went on an Avid Nexus, we connected the Curator, we did all the rendering local to create a proxy that then we uploaded at Keycode through Storage DNA to an AWS instance on S3 with IPV running it.
Yep.
And handed it on over.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yep. Thank you. I did a great job getting all that. We had a lot of footage, man. Yeah. And just the thing that now that at my home base, while everyone's working, like Alex was showing, you just hit that button and we're either conforming to our HD, so I can make to HD, or it's conforming back to the original raw data that's on the 48 terabyte drive. And that drive will also ultimately be the one that we use to take it to the post house to master, because obviously when we get done with our cuts and lock everything, then we'll be taking that out, and then we'll take it to a post house, have it colored, we'll take it to our sound house and have the sound done and everything mixed. So for our offline workflow, it's incredible.
Definitely. So the whole basis is offline workflow in the cloud.
In the cloud, yeah.
And then finishing workflow on premises somewhere.
Yeah.
How's been the experience been working with AWS?
AWS is fine. We haven't had any issues yet. I mean, we're just getting into that. We'll figure out as the scalability and stuff. But yeah, there hasn't been anything yet. They're hosting it, and the media's coming through, and everyone could read it. So that's
working as advertised.
Yeah, as advertised. As advertised, and we'll keep optimizing it for better speed. Obviously, multicam cuts, things like that. We shot a lot of stuff multicam, so it's being multicam synced and grouped and put together.
So you talked a little bit about the discussions at NAB. IPV's been the engine behind all of this. How did the whole plan incubate after those discussions? How's IPV been your partner in creating basically a complete media ecosystem?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I was figuring, I was trying to forward think for like the next 3 to 5 years when we were doing it. How we're really going to scale out. What are we going to have for media? We got, these 2 shows going, and then we're doing a co-production. We have this show and then another show, and then a co-production in China that we're working on a whole slew of stuff. So there's a lot of media that has to be scaled out. I just feel this is the best way to be able to do it, between the sound stages that we have there in Taiwan and what we're working with here. It's, the cloud's awesome. And everybody got fast internet now.
Yeah.
I was thinking when I went to Asia, I was like, oh man, who knows what it's going to be like. But in Korea and China, the hotels were quicker than some people have in their office.
So this is, I'm going to ask the hard question. I'm going to open up the question if anybody has. What was the negative impact or the hard thing of rolling this up? What were the issues that you dealt with initially, but then potentially got worked out, or was everything perfect? I know I've got advice on you to make everything
perfect. Time's always an issue.
So those that are interested in probably pursuing this avenue, putting things in the cloud, having editors, what kind of pitfalls do you think they would see, what they should anticipate and be wary of or see success in?
I think the only time you don't have success is when you're not communicating. If everyone's in proper communication, then you communicate to the people, the proper time it's going to take. So as long as everyone's always open and honest, that's a good thing we've had here, everybody's open and honest. So we're able to communicate, so I can always relay to that client, you know what? It's going to take another 2 weeks. This is a lot of data. They're doing us a favor. They're pushing it through their own system. It's not going directly up to the cloud. We're saving all that time on the transcode. So, let's wait those 2 weeks, then we'll ramp up and get the other guys started. Things like that. So
you're trying to say I'm going to get another drive, aren't I?
What?
Another drive of ProRes.
Oh, you're going to get it. Yeah, you're going to get stuff soon. But yeah, there's always, as we scale it out, there's issues, but there hasn't been anything that's been, nothing that's held us back.
No drop deads.
No, not even close.
So what have been the key milestones in getting this implemented?
Key milestones is getting all that data up.
What other
Just
ones are still out
just
there?
being able to get it out. No, just what we have. 300 hours of content that you could begin to access and then drive the metadata fields to be able to separate it so that editors can have that. That's huge. So I think the next milestone will be just getting everything logged and synced and grouped, and then getting the transcriber module, which I'm really, anxious to get going.
Yeah.
Because once that transcribing works against all your metadata, and in Curator you could pull it up, then you're pulling up pieces of conversation you remember, and it's bringing up all those key points. Every clip that relates to that kind of stuff on those keywords is going to come up in your Curator panel. So it's just a quick way to, especially in like docu-reality series where you're actually creating the project in post. Unlike scripted, you have a script, so you got something to follow. In docu-reality, you're kind of writing your script in post. So that stuff becomes vital, all the metadata. That was one of the things that attracted me to it, was just like being able to attack that metadata with precision in lots of different ways to be able to bring up the clips you need to tell the story you want to tell quickly.
With lots of different people who aren't.
With lots of people who don't necessarily know the story the way I know it from shooting it and
also
directing
don't necessarily have to be paid Los Angeles rates to do it.
Exactly, yeah. Well, you always put money where you put money where you need the talent. You know it. It's like, a certain amount, there's certain talent milestones. So that guy needs to get paid his rate because he's awesome. Yeah. And there's other things that other people need to do that anybody can do. And so when you realize what those task-based things are, you can assign them down the line, and then, maximize your budget so that you're maximizing it toward talent.
Definitely. So IPC just happened. Where do you see this workflow a year from now?
It's going to get standardized. I think pretty much once all of the kinks get worked out and all the different workflows get worked out. So, that's the thing. No two workflows are ever the same. No two projects are ever the same. Everything you attack in production, there's always going to be a different end result and a different path to getting there. So, these guys, these engineers are becoming our best friends, and they always should be and always have, because the more that the production community, the engineering community kind of get together and figure each other out, like, I know the way your brain works, and I know the way your brain works. You know, that symbiotic thing that's happening, and it's happening more and more because technology and creativity are becoming, you know, merged together almost like a hybrid.
Notice how he didn't say salespeople in that at all. Salespeople are not in that equation at all.
Salespeople we love. No, you guys are the ones that introduce us to this great stuff.
We have a mic out there if anybody wants questions, but this workflow is very unique. I encourage you, I know it's getting late on the hours and there's probably still some booze back there, but I will tell you, if you get an opportunity to look at these workflows, if you have questions of our speaker and tonight, please check them out. It's amazing what they're doing over there. Do you have any questions, Jeff, you want to add?
I'm good. If we're going to take questions from the audience, I only ask that you actually go to the microphone in the back of the room.
There's a mic back there.
Because we can see your face from there. If you're forward of it, we're being blinded by lights. So, first question.
We've got one.
Hi, I'm Jane Fleck, and
Hello.
I manage data for a living. And one of the things that I'm looking at with this workflow, and this is when I watch these presentations, I'm looking at, okay, so I'm on location. There were two questions when I heard the presentation about the workflow system you're using. One was, if you're on location and you are in a place where you don't have good internet, because Lord knows about 80% of the time when I'm on location, my internet consists of a hotspot on my phone, and I'm not going to be putting data up with my phone. So how do you get data up? Do you just you go down to the bottom of the hill with your drive and find a place that has internet to upload it? And second, what have you run into in terms of these compressed files that editors are using over the internet in terms of being able to evaluate technical quality of the video? One of the things that I was fascinated by last night, I went and saw a pre-release screening of Downton Abbey, and there were quite a number of shots in that movie that were out of focus. And clearly, it had gone through the entire very high-end post-production process, and no one had ever looked at it projected until, who knows. But so I'd be interested in hearing those two things, uploads, how you deal with remote, and also quality when you're doing this cloud-based compressed file editing.
You want to handle the second part of the
I'll handle the second part. Yeah. You want to handle the first part? Okay.
Yeah. Go for your part first.
My part first?
You second
Okay.
First.
All
Gentleman
right.
first.
Gentlemen, okay. Second part, remote quality. The picture's clean. It's good. It's a compressed HD file. I mean, as far as critical focus and stuff, if they blow it up on a 4K monitor, yeah, you might not look at it perfect, but then again, it's not their job. They're an offline editor, you know? They're going to be making decisions on story content at that point in time. I'm not relying on them for that. When I take it back to the high res, I'm going to be looking at it. There's going to be QC looking at it, and I can always go back and give notes because it is offline. It's not, we're not locking the cut right there with those guys. So, you know, if you're relying on that workflow to lock your cut, you know, I would go back to the high res. No.
So on the first point, there's a whole bunch of different methods that I've been exposed to in my previous life as dealing with that sort of material coming in. I'd say the weirdest was show shot in Alaska. The drives coming in wrapped in towels from the hotel because they ran out of packaging material. The only internet connectivity they had was at the local grade school, and it was probably about 50 megs maximum. So they had to literally ship drives out. The other thing I've seen is folks will find local internet service providers. So you go somewhere where there's a data center and you work out a deal with them. I've seen that happen in Paris. I've seen it happen all over Europe, all over Africa. You find the nearest decent connection and you use that as an upload point. And if you're working with certain stakeholders, say people who own their own cloud instances, it can be possible to do that upload at that remote location or that near set location, and then just simply have it moved in the cloud to where you need it to be. So it moves from the Paris instance to the New York instance, in a very, very short period of time. So, more questions?
Do you want to, Evan wants to address this with IPV as well, because I know that you have an answer for this. Come on, get in the light.
Come on in the light.
Come on, we've got to stand in the light.
Grab a chair.
Come here. Here you go.
Grab that
take-
chair. There's an extra chair. We planned on this.
IPV deals with this concept.
Bring it right.
Yeah, this is something that we see quite frequently where, and it started off as a sports workflow when the teams, excuse me, when the team's on the road, the capture of the B-roll footage, it's very difficult to get back to the headquarters to be able to edit in time, and that content is very, very time sensitive. So we developed a workflow where what they do is almost the reverse of what we would normally expect. We actually generate the proxy out in the field. We upload the proxy to the cloud, and at that point, anybody then has access to the content. So you can see immediately what's being worked on, what's available. You can even have your editors actually create a project and edit on it, and then the guys in the field can check that project out, conform it against their local high-res, and then the only thing that you're actually trying to upload at that point is the small amount of high-res for the finished content. So that's certainly one way that you can do that to make that content available to people as quickly as possible, so you get it in as real time as you can.
And
you don't need
the demo reel.
digging.
The demo reel actually proved the efficacy of that methodology, because you don't necessarily need to do the transcode. You're talking about moving the transcode before the data moves out.
Yeah.
So if you're getting that transcode done to that frame accurate low-res proxy, it could be uploaded by all sorts of different methods. You know, there's bonded cellular with live view, and there's a couple other different ways that could possibly be done these days.
Thank you for coming out. I know it's a late night on a Thursday. My wife's already upset with me now, I'll tell you that for sure. Thanks, guys, for coming out. I appreciate it all. Good night. Good night, audience.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from IPV. Today I'm going to show you how Curator for Adobe helps producers and editors work collaboratively wherever they are in the world. Victoria is in New York with the high-res video. She needs an editor based in LA to work on content that's far too large to send. After registering the media in Curator and saving the high-res video onto her on-premise storage, she uses Curator Clip Link to create a production task and can preload the project bins with content. She ensures that the project has the correct metadata against it so that it can be easily identified later. Let's jump to Premiere in LA. Editors can use the Curator for Adobe panel to securely access the library of content from anywhere in the world without being connected to video storage. This editor has just found and checked out the production task that Victoria created. You can see the sequence settings and media items they need are already there. Using Curator's search tools directly inside the panel means that it's easy for them to find the clip they need. Editors in remote locations open a frame-accurate, low-resolution video stream directly inside the Premiere project bin. They can view the stream in the source monitor to see metadata markers along the timeline. New markers appear automatically. Check out Curator Logger for more information on this. The editor can use the standard Premiere toolset to work on their content. By pressing Export, they can select from a list of options. In this case, they've selected Remote Conform, which will use a remote AME to render the sequence against the original source. If the high-res has been moved offline, Curator will manage the automatic restore from archive, whether it's from LTO, Object, or Cloud platforms. Once they've finished working on the project, they'll check it back in. The same project can be checked out again straight away anywhere in the world. So in New York, Victoria can swap the editor's project bin contents and sequences for the high-res assets on her online storage, allowing her to continue editing. We hope you enjoyed seeing how Curator for Adobe instantly links editors and producers all around the world.
So again, just to reiterate that kind of ethos of IPV, when we build this platform and we make this available, what we're saying is collaborate without borders. Get as many people as you can that can add value to the process or add value to the media. Get them access to it. Make it easy to find. Make it easy for them to go in and carry out the tasks they need to carry out on any device to help you create something great. Whether that's through a web-based logging tool with controlled vocabularies, and we'll show some of this stuff for helping people find content. We're going to find a nice video of a lion for you, Tony, or tiger, perhaps. That's right. So we're going to jump into each one of these UIs and think about each user persona that might be in here. We've got editors working in Premiere. We've got producers commenting on the content, and we've got people just looking through a library of content, finding stuff that's relevant for a particular editorial task. So I'll start in the UI at the bottom there, called Clip Link. And what this does is it gives very, very, very powerful search tools to people looking at an existing library of content. And this could be metadata you see down the left-hand side about the content. We also have scene change detection, so we can actually scrub along a timeline without even committing to opening a file. But we can start to filter through and actually look at metadata that's relevant, that we know is actually there. So there's no point searching for stuff and getting 0 results. We're going to build a promo for a zoo show, let's say. I could start to very quickly just say, I'm interested in lions and water buffalo, as an example. And lions are cool. I don't know what Tony's talking about. Lions are cool. Elephants, then. We'll go with elephants. So you can see very easily, as someone who perhaps doesn't have knowledge or domain knowledge of the content library I'm looking in, this is far easier to navigate than a folder structure connected to a remote computer that I've remote desktoped into, essentially. And we can do all the, multi-select stuff and preview media, look at metadata. So here's an example. I just loaded that asset, and I mentioned that 0 client-side footprint, so that means there's no plugins, nothing like that. But we still have really, really cool video control. We've jumped to a valuable part of the media here, the bit where the elephant was. I didn't have to scrub around and look. We have things like scene change detection. We have frame step. I mentioned that time code accuracy. We even have fast forward and rewind with audio scrub. And this is all streaming directly out of AWS at the moment. We have timecode seek, we have multiple audio support, closed caption, auto captioning, and the ability to drive other workflows. So I can create productions, for example, for somebody to carry out an edit task for me using this content that I've collected. This is the stuff I want them to use. And by doing that, we would jump over into a couple of other UIs. So hopefully you can see this is a really nice way of finding content that you want to use and putting them in the shopping cart or whatever, and just making someone aware of it, basically. Don't have to actually physically send any content anywhere. What I'm going to do is ask someone to annotate the content. So that means they're going to go to another 0 client-side footprint HTML5 UI. So again, do this on your iPad, whatever. This could be a remote producer now, looking at the content that's been recorded from this remote production team who are out somewhere in the savannah recording wildlife. They don't have an internet connection to upload the high-res content, but we want to pick the best shots. We want to tell them to redo stuff, whatever it might be. We can use this to start annotating, marking in, frame in, and frame out. We can start searching through a controlled vocabulary of metadata. So we've delivered, in this case, actually a wildlife vocabulary. So at the beginning of that clip was a zebra. I can select that, and it was in a rainforest, perhaps, and it was a zoom shot, let's say. And I'm simply going to commit that data in. Now, the cool thing about that is the value of me doing that is increased because an editor, who again could be in London right now, I could be here in LA, our production team could be in Africa, and my editor could be in London. that metadata, my comment about the content, is available immediately. So if I jump over to Premiere, what we're going to do is log in to our panel as an editor. Again, we're connecting to a cloud service here. The media is not here in LA. And what I'm going to do is basically log into the Curator system, and it's going to deliver a controlled collection of jobs for me to do as an editor. I'm going to check out that production task, and I'm going to use these AI metadata tags and manual metadata tags to find content that's very interesting to me and very useful for the edit task I'm working on.
So Alex, where is this media right now that you're going to be looking for and searching and editing?
For me, personally, as an editor, it doesn't really matter where it is. I don't know, potentially. I mean, I do know, and I will tell you in a minute. But it's kind of irrelevant. From an editorial perspective, the high res for this could be in deep archive somewhere. It could be on-prem in an archive somewhere. If we have our hybrid component, our on-prem component, it doesn't matter where it is. I can work with this centralized frame-accurate proxy using media from many different geographical locations, many different storage systems, many different layers of archive, and I can access it all immediately, 24 hours a day, wherever I am. In reality, this is hosted in Chicago. There is a storage system in Chicago where the high-res is. However, it was registered, and I'm going to show you the registration part, through an application we've got called Curator Connect. So people can submit content to it. They can choose to upload the high-res, or they can do the hybrid model where they keep the high-res local to them but upload a frame-accurate proxy. But it doesn't really matter kind of where that content is. So this is the panel. I'm going to try and rotate this without breaking it. So this is the panel here. I'm doing a live demo here, kind of going a bit off-piste, but that's always fun. Let's do that. So you can see I've logged in. We've now got access to more than just a file system. We've got access to search capabilities, descriptive metadata, some media tools, and I can actually look into my job list. So I know if we're doing a nature short form, this is being output to Twitter, for example. This is just example data you can define your projects as. I can actually look inside this project without actually opening it. I can see there is a project bin already in it. So I don't have access to the storage. There isn't a physical like PR proj, Adobe project file anywhere that I'm accessing. I'm looking at just data that's stored in our secure cloud services or in a private cloud. And I can choose to actually check that out and say, yes, I'm interested in doing it. I've already got, this user's already working on something. So there's an example of me actually not being able to change someone else's edit. That's fine. I'm going to log in as a different user and hope they're not working on something. So I'm going to check out the project. I can actually see this is fine. So different user I've logged in as, not currently working on anything. There's the most recent version, someone's added a controlled sequence to that. So I'm going to choose to check out that project. Very quickly, you see we've delivered a control project bin to the edit client. Now I can start working with content. So there may be, remember the producer that assigned this task, they found content using the web search tools that would be good for this, perhaps. So I can choose to bring that in if I want. What I'm actually going to do is just look through the library. So I can start to search in here if I was interested in lions, for example. We just very quickly find content that's relevant to what I'm looking for. Or I can choose to bring in an entire asset. So if I double click that, what we do, instead of actually downloading media, we very quickly just got access to a streaming proxy now. We can also see along the Premiere timeline those green markers that have come in. These are the comments that have come from remote producers or remote annotation or even the AI services. And this all serves to help me find interesting content. So I can now actually use these as kind of bookmarks to click through the content and decide, yeah, that is something I'm interested in using.
So Alex, I want to understand this. We've got content that's up in the cloud in Chicago. We have an editor with a panel in Adobe in Pacoima. another one in Poughkeepsie. Everybody's using this content. They're pulling string outs, they're editing, and they're also seeing notes from producers in Beverly Hills.
Correct.
This is multiple people hitting all of this content, using it, editing it, and then pushing it back for string outs for people then to link back to the high res that is sitting at home, potentially.
That is an option.
You guys all follow that? I know this seems like really, imagine 5, 30, 40 editors all hitting this content, this proxy, linking back to the high res. Nobody's in the studio. Everybody's at home or wherever they are. This is really cool stuff, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely it is. And I'll show you how some of that collaborative workflow actually works. So the high res for here, we don't need someone to actually render the high res for us if we want, as this particular editor has a number of export workflows available to them. And you can see this editor actually has permission to produce high quality or HD or 4K, whatever content from the original. So I could choose that and say I'm going to do a remote conform, and I'm being requested, it's not NASA, it's wildlife or nature. I'm providing some controlled metadata to help categorize the content I'm producing, and I can simply choose to export that. Now, the system knows where the high res is. The first clip may be from a piece of high res that is in the cloud, wherever it may be. The second clip may be from a piece of content that's stored on premise. The system knows. And as an editor, this is what I mean by I don't care where the media is. I hit export, the system is going to collect the media together and make it available to a render engine. And we partner with a number of providers in that case. What we do here is leverage Adobe Media Encoder as a remote service, essentially, and it would automatically bring all that high-res media where the remote server, which has huge compute power, is able to access it and then create and render my new sequence. Alternatively, as Tony says, I can choose to check this in and make a comment and say, you know, rough cut, done, whatever, at which point, if all my media is in London, let's say I know my media is in London, and that's just the way we've deployed the workflow, I could, you know, this would send an alert to my editor in London. He'd check my project out, immediately get my frame accurate timeline exactly as you see here, and he'd click this button here, switch to high res, and that would just swap out every item in the project bin for the high res source media, and they'd be able to do color correction, remote local render, something like that. So very, very flexible in terms of where the rendering is. One thing I want to show you very quickly, very quickly, this is the last thing. I know I've actually filled 45 minutes. I didn't think I would, so that's good. I'm going to clear these markers. And I'm going to just look at this thing here called live markers. So what this does is it basically tells the system, let me know when something interesting happens to this piece of content. And I'm assuming my esteemed colleague over there at the demo system has got the logger loaded up, and he will add one. In case he hasn't, I'll do it myself. Notice there's no markers along that timeline there. If we go back to our logger, and I mark an in point and an out point, and I say, I love this shot, and I hit save. Now remember, that person could be anywhere in the world. That marker appears dynamically along the edit timeline. So that information could be coming from a human, like I just did, and they could be anywhere. I could have someone in London right now. There we go. One's just popped in. Wildebeest. It is wildebeest as well. So thank you for the data integrity there, actually putting correct metadata in. But you can see how this joins that workflow together without needing to transfer the content. We have people adding value to the workflow, and they're able to view this wherever they are. That logger, remember, you can do on an iPad, sat in a hotel Wi-Fi connection, watching stuff come in and making those frame-accurate annotations to assist with that editorial process for whatever purpose, standards and compliance or just simple content logging like this. Again, once I've finished with that, I can choose to export it. One other thing I'm going to show is the ingest tool. So this is the way we ingest. This has some really cool, I can see some more. Hi, Alex. You need to use this in your Zoo promo. Thank you, Ewan. I assume that was you. One thing I'm going to show is how we import the content. So here's an example of a red camera card. This Curator Connect upload tool analyzes video files, camera cards, to actually provide simplified content submission. So if I drag my red card in, notice there's a number of files actually in that this system recognizes it as red, and conceptually it presents it as a single asset. You'll know these cameras will chunk, at 4 gig intervals or whatever. This conceptually is a single recording, and it allows me to add controlled metadata and submit that into the system for people to use very, very easily. And Tony thus concludes my demo.
Telestream's been in the cloud business for a while now. We acquired a company 3.5 years ago, and then rebranded them called Telestream Cloud Services. And they are the software as a service arm. So does everybody know what software as a service really means? It's essentially that you're just getting one bill, right, for hardware and software. And so we offer that. But then here all the way to the right, we also offer what we call infrastructure as a service. So if you want to buy a license of Vantage, which is our flagship product, or already own one, and install it on a private cloud, you pay your cloud provider for the infrastructure, a virtual machine, and you pay Telestream for your license, or you move it up there yourself. And what we've done with our Vantage version 8 release, and we announced and showed at NAB, and we have some early adopter customers beginning to do now, is we have this middle piece. You might want to call it a hybrid extension called Vantage Cloud Port. And it sits in between your software as a service billing engine, where it spins up containers on demand and executes those services, but uses that workflow orchestration that a lot of you in this room are very familiar with, very comfortable with inside Vantage. If you just have like a library of stuff and you need to make just a bunch of proxies, then our Flip commodity service is great. We also offer QC as a service. Again, we've grown while others have shrank and disappeared. Years ago, we bought the company VidChecker, and we then took their solution and we've deployed it as a software as a service as well in the cloud. So if you have to supply a file to Netflix and you want to run a QC report to see if there's any video hits, that the file wrapper is right, that it passes the photon test, you can do that and just pay per minute that you ran. If you need to check something to supply to the UK and make sure it's DPP compatible, you can do that and run the photosensitive epilepsy tests. We also have a service called Time Text Speech because, again, while others shrank, we grew. We acquired the makers of Mac Caption Maker years ago. And we took some of their technology, which was really just sort of a backroom science experiment at first, and lots are now doing it, where we basically listen to the soundtrack and we create a transcript. Lots create the transcripts for lots of different reasons, including search like an IPV and other catalog and asset management systems. But we've got a dedicated cloud-enabled UI to then edit that transcript and make closed caption and subtitle files that are legally compliant. Not too many words per minute and such. And you can move it upper center, lower center, scroll on, pop on, and all that. So when you think about Telestream, I really want you to think about this diagram because we can help you with your solutions all the way from ingest and capture of live signals through that transformation, whether that's transcoding, closed caption, subtitle manipulation, automation of trimming out black and putting in black, packaging. We're about to start shipping our IMF producer packager this quarter. Streaming and redelivering and monitoring that. I want you just to think of that whole content life cycle. We can help you with all that. So we're here to talk about the cloud, right? And by the way, backing up just a second, the reason I want you thinking about this is the cloud is just a choice where you're going to deploy. If we can solve a problem for you, and we're really good at solving problems. Eric here to my left, he's really, really good at solving problems. He's my secret weapon. I always joke, him and everybody else, in terms of solving technical and workflow problems. But if we can solve that problem, and if you bring it to us and give us a little bit of your time and you give us a little time back, we probably can. So think about the cloud as a deployment and as a way to open up to the collaborative benefits as well. One such place that we've gotten a lot of splash that we did this is the Fox World Cup, both the men's and the women's. This is a screen from the men's snapshot, where we took our capture box, and it was located in Moscow, and we encoded files that went to an asset management system in the cloud, as well as then stored high-res locally, and then editors working on Premiere and creating cut lists out of the asset management systems, and all asset management systems can generally do this, so we are very, we play nicely with everybody. They would create a cut list, a highlight reel, a little tiny little XML file would go back to Moscow, and it would get married up with the high-res storage that happened to be sitting there. We'd create a highlight reel using our post-producer module, and then push it in for playout or for EVS usage and stuff. And that's a kind of projects we're getting pulled in more and more and more. Eric and I were just down at a gaming company doing a very similar project where they're taking encapsulated feeds, right? So, and there are multiple encapsulation methodologies, and they're recording them, and they're subclipping them, and they're distributing them, and more and more is being done in that collaborative and cloud-efficient distribution, which if we can get it up there once, keep it up there, and then only push it down to the players when we need to. So this is a sort of a calling card use case of ours. Getting back to CloudPort. So I've mentioned some of this. CloudPort acts as that agent, that enabler between your persistent or permanent license and your software as a service consumption-based usage. With Vantage 8 and later, so which is out in the marketplace, so there's a couple of you that are on a little bit earlier versions. It leverages any and multiple clouds and multiple locations within each of those cloud providers' fabrics. Microsoft Azure, who we are at the highest partner level for media and entertainment companies possible. AWS, Google, IBM. So one Vantage system can contract, if you will, an individual task, an individual, we call an action, if you've ever seen Vantage workflows, and Eric's going to show you some of those, can contract that one action to run on any one of those clouds and any region wherever it is, so that we can help you manage your egress fees, right? Everybody, when they talk about their cloud, they're like, yeah, but I don't know, it's up there, I got to pay for it to get down. So we make it easier for you to not have to pull things down and move it around. We also have a way of not just being aware of where your media is, but your system utilization aware. So if you prioritize a job more important than anything else, and your system's overtaxed for the moment, we can move the media up to a cloud, if you allow us to and enable us to, transcode it in the cloud, bill you per just output minute, and then return it down, distribute it there, whatever it is you need to do. And one thing that a lot of customers, as we talk to this, will find it interesting is you don't have to have that license that you couldn't quite justify before. All right, I love talking, Tony loves talking to people about post-producer and how powerful it is. If you don't have enough need to want to buy that permanent license, you can just, if you will, rent it by the output minute every time you use it up in Telestream Cloud. That becomes really powerful as well. So there are main 5 actions that have been enabled within Vantage CloudPort. Our analysis option, our Flip 64, which is our newer of the general purpose transcoder, IPTV for making cable labs, transport streams, multi-screen for making adaptive bitrate packages, post-producer for doing that auto-assembly kind of work, and time text flip for manipulating your caption and subtitle files. So with that, we pretty much cover most of the use cases. There's a couple edge cases where, watermarking with somebody else's technology and different things, just as the cloud becomes a collection of all these different services. There's a lot of stuff that needs to take place there, but we are working hard on that. And I'd say about 90% of what we do is already covered through CloudPort. Eric's going to show you a little bit of this, but I've mentioned it. These are 2 snapshots where also in Vantage 8, we added 2 new services, a location service and a utilization service. I sort of mentioned that. So you can see in here on the leftmost screen, in the upper right box, that little Q with the T in the middle of it. that action has been cloud enabled so that you can run it in the cloud. And based on the file you give us, we're smart to know, is this a file path to, you know, the SNS or Quantum or whoever storage is sitting right next to my server? Or is it a path to an Azure storage or an S3 bucket? And based on that, we will process the job where it makes sense, as you've told us. Similarly, the utilization model, I suppose.
Let Larry show us the cool stuff. Come on, let's go.
I'm gonna.
Let go, Eric.
So the one thing that's going on here is when it hits the workflow at that point, we immediately spin up those containers, and we will handle all that media management for you, moving assets up and or down. Everything that you're going to want to do, you know, it's not this magic weird science of, you know, how much is it going to cost me? Everything has a SKU. You can see on the price list on the left, and this is published. And not only that, but when you configure that individual action, okay, if you can see it in the green, although it's fuzzy from where I'm standing, we tell you what that's going to cost you ahead of time. If it's a high frame rate, if it's high def, standard def, low frame rate, depending on what kind of file you're making, we tell you what that'll be, so you can predict and decide. And with that, Eric's going to come up here and show you a little bit of what we can do. But again, I want you to walk away. We are truly, truly hybrid. You can use Telestream's leading products where you want it, when you want it, and how you want to pay for it.
Let's get us on the screen here.
See, that's exciting up there.
Boxes, lots of
boxes.
Boxes and boxes.
Automated workflow.
Okay, so what Larry mentioned was all of our cloud solutions. Let's go into my web browser here. So this is our Telestream Cloud kind of dashboard. So sorry if you all hear me here. This is our Telestream Cloud dashboard. So it's very easy to go to the cloud.telestream.net and sign up with a subscription for any of these cloud products that we do offer. So Larry mentioned the pure SaaS models. That's your flip right there. There's your speech to text, which will dump a transcript back down into Mac Caption or Caption Maker, fully timed, and pretty much gets you about 80% there with a little bit of spelling and punctuation. You can run all your daily stuff through there. We have Quality Control, which is VidChecker. And then there's Vantage Cloud Port. So for any existing Vantage users, you might have an on-prem system, or you have a persistent Vantage system up in the cloud or your private data center. The way this works is basically, I'm going to show this first workflow here. So for the folks that aren't familiar with Vantage, this is called a workflow. And the reason why we call it a workflow is typically your flip service, right? Your file in, file out. Everybody can make a file. Vantage is all about workflow automation. So this particular workflow is called Cloud Port based upon utilization. So if I go ahead and zoom in here, one is a watch folder for my on-prem system. So you have a NAS or a SAN, you're dropping files in, you want to transcode them. And one watch folder is looking at my S3 bucket up in AWS. We have a location action that basically determines, is it local or is it in the cloud, right? So notice my in the cloud branch here, I have not activated that in a cloud port yet. So basically very simple, right click in the action, cloud mode. And then I can basically connect to my S3 account with my S3 credentials. And that little hat that Larry mentioned kind of appears right there. And then your price per content minute shows in live right here. So that's just an example where you can get real-time feedback from the system to see how much it's going to cost you. Another kind of function for Cloud Port is based upon utilization. So if you do have an on-prem system, you have a watch folder, you have what's called a utilization action. So as an example, maybe I drop in 100 files and I set a threshold. If X amount of files go into the queue, then automatically use this decision branch. This is one of the kind of the logic branches within Vantage. Go ahead and process that in the cloud. These are pretty fairly simple workflows. Now, just a quick note, I'm not going to run anything for these workflows, but our pure SaaS models can be triggered from Vantage as well, called Cloud Flip, called Cloud QC, and also called Cloud Speech. You can trigger those from a Vantage workflow if you are already an existing customer. So let's go to one of these fun workflows that Tony's been anticipating over here. So,
baby.
So using the power of Vantage analysis, you know, lots of boxes. I'm not going to go through every freaking box in this workflow, but the whole idea here is I built this for a customer. Basically, they have everything up in the cloud. They don't have any on-prem system. They don't want to process anything locally. So basically, they're going to drop something in an S3 bucket. We're going to analyze that, get some media properties, the width, the height, the frame rate, the duration, the video bit rate, etc., and do some qualification in those files. Fail the file if there's less than 2 channels of audio. Is it HD or is it SD? If it's not true 720 or 1080, fail it. If the bit rate's below 80 megabits per second, fail it. If it's not a valid distribution format frame rate, fail it. If there's no time code, or if there's time code, fail it. If it has color bars or slates or if it has black more than 5 seconds before program, fail it. All this stuff is coming from analysis and basically allowing them to triage that content in an automated fashion. Another thing we're also doing on here in this particular workflow is, yeah, there we go. We're doing some curtain detection, black detection, and slate and spot analysis. The reason why I'm doing black detection is if they're episodics or for long form content, they're going to have act breaks. So the rule here is if the act breaks are longer than 2 seconds, we're going to automatically analyze those black areas and normalize all those to 1 second black segments within the content using Post Producer.
This is a workflow that Eric built for the customer who wants to distribute some linear content for OTT video on demand. So that's why pulling out these blacks is important, and we were able to do it in an automated fashion.
Exactly. So no bodies, no humans. Now, again, when you're doing logic and workflow automation, you have to build in all the types of different variables that might come in on your source files. But that's what Telestream Professional Services, myself, and other engineers, we've been doing this for years. So I'm going to go ahead and in my S3 management console, I'm going to drop a file into my bucket here. And here's my CloudPort watch folder. And we're going to paste that in my bucket that I'm monitoring. So this is just a very simple, very, very small file. And I'll get into my job status, and you'll notice now that my job has triggered. And now it's calling out the Telestream Cloud. Again, you see that little hat right there. I'm actually doing an analysis up in the cloud. It's pulling from my S3 bucket, and everything that has this little Telestream Cloud hat within my workflow is going to be processed in the cloud. If I go back to my Telestream Cloud, go to my CloudPort, there's my queued job right there. So what it's doing right now is spinning up an EC2 instance, and basically the way this works is once it spins it up in a region and you start submitting more and more jobs, it's a hot zone, and it'll immediately start spinning up these what are called Docker containers and then processing all your media. So that's kind of the round of the world loop there. I mean, you know, it seems pretty simple, but the stuff that we do there is actually pretty difficult, but we make it easy for the user, you know.
Put to the table at Telestream, you'll be able to see these workflows. Eric will be able to walk you through it. Again, we're going to have a Q&A at the end as well. Again, I've sold with Larry and Eric a lot of solutions across the country. The workflows that happen with Telestream, Vantage, and now with the cloud solutions, being able to do it on demand and just buy what you need is kind of making it available for everybody. You should really do your research. Please ask them questions in the Q&A, please, at the end. So thank you guys very much for coming up and showing this. I also encourage you to understand from a mid-tier to a large and even small workflow with Vantage, the ROI, being able to have editors edit as opposed to transcode and render and the cloud solutions, it's a very fast return.